Hey everybody, David Nagel. This is installment number 2 of Faith. The idea, do you have the capacity for faith inside of yourself? Come on in and give it a listen.
You're listening to the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. All right, everybody, David Nagel here. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast. This is part 2 of our lesson on faith. Okay. So, I want you to ask yourself a question, or do this better yet. Think about a problem that you have right now that you're stuck in, that you're having trouble with. I'm going to give you a piece of truth that you can remember that is both a piece of consciousness and a strategy that will always get you out of being stuck. Right? And perhaps it'll prevent you from getting stuck in many cases. So here's what it is. When you have a problem that you're stuck in, the only problem that you have is a lack of vision. When you have a problem that you're stuck in, the only problem that you have is a lack of vision. Now, let me explain, because this is so vitally important when it comes down to the idea of faith. Most people grow up in an environment where nobody encourages them to cultivate a vision for the rest of their life. So what do? They do whatever school tells them to do. They prepare for what parents tell them to do, what school tells them to do. I remember when my kids were going to school and they were in high school and they would make them sit down and fill out, they would have workday things and they would make them fill out these sheets and pick out what classes they thought that they would want to take in college. And I had my youngest daughter wanted to be a musician and it wasn't on the list. And she went up to the teacher and she said, what I want to be is not on this list. And she said, what is it you want to be? She said, I want to be a professional musician. And the teacher told her, you can't be a professional musician. Very, very few people ever get to be a professional musician. You have to pick something that's on the list. And her heart sunk to the pit of her stomach and she came home in tears. In her mind, this teacher told her, give up your dream, get realistic and pick something on the list. And she said, do I have to do that? And I said, absolutely not. I said, take that sheet, write me musician on it and hand it back to them. And if they give you any flack, I'm happy to come into the school and help. And the deal was that, you know, they get points or graded or whatever it is about how many kids they get prepped for college and all that stuff. They don't give a shit about what that kid actually wants. They just need him to pick something. It's what we call the illusion of choice. Here's all the things you can pick from that suck in life. And you think you're actually choosing the career where it is that you want to go. So people get stuck in that. I got stuck in that. I was so disillusioned with school and life that I just quit. I'm like, get me out of here. I'm going to find my own way. But there was no vision. I never heard of vision. I never heard of creating a vision. Most kids don't heard of really creating a vision. And then if they do, it's not anything that's serious because at some point, the life strategy and responsibility gets in the way and you have to get realistic. Like, okay, great for your vision there, bud, but how are you going to pay the bills, right? You got all these bills coming up. Forget the vision, get to work, right? Get a second job. What are you going to do to pay the bills? Your wife's pregnant, there's a kid coming, that type of thing. Well, what it says in the Bible is that where there is no vision, the people will perish. You have to have a vision. And when we have a problem, any problem in life, without a vision of knowing where it is that we're going, what happens with the problem is the problem pulls you down to the level of the problem and forces you to fight that problem at that level. Now, there's a saying, I don't actually have it in front of me, but it's a biblical saying that it's in Ecclesiastes, and I think it's Ecclesiastes 10:13. And I think I'm right about that. And what the saying basically is this: money is the answer to everything. And what it means, it doesn't say money, is everything. It says money is the answer to everything. And the thing is, all the different things that we have to deal with in life, if we have enough money to be able to deal with all of those problems that we have, then we don't get forced to deal with those problems at the level of the problem. When I worked for somebody else, if something broke at the house, I was spending my evenings and my weekends fixing it, cutting the grass, fixing the roof, putting up a new garage door. I mean, you own a house, it's one thing after another all the time. There's something going wrong. Cutting the hedges, fixing the mailbox because somebody ran it over in the middle of the night. All different. You're forced to deal with the problem at the level of the problem. If you have enough money, you have your assistant do whatever is necessary to have that thing fixed while you're out building your dream. I know people that and from a realistic place in their mind, they're like, I don't have time to go after a goal. Who's going to do all this stuff? I was the same way. The decisions that have to be made in order to drop the things that put you in a cage in life requires that you not only do you have a vision, but the faith to back it up. The faith that going after that vision is going to get you what you want in life. Faith is the understanding that I am going to accomplish what I cannot see in the reality, but what I can see in my inner eye of my vision. In order to do that, you have to expand inside of you your capacity for that faith. So let's get into what that actually means. In order to expand inside of you the faith, you have to have a vision that causes the expansion, meaning that the vision needs to be big enough, bright enough, and as I said in the first episode of this, you have to want that vision bad enough so that it causes a desire in your heart to want to go after it more than anything. You can call it desire, you can call it urgency, you can call it love, you can call it motivation, you can call it whatever it is that you want. But the truth is this: if you're not going after something that you truly want, you won't have the intestinal fortitude to be able to do the things daily to do it, let alone do it consistently enough in order to have successful results, because all success is based on the principle of consistency. You have to do the right things over time in order to have the results. Whether you're a sports player or you're a musician or you're an entrepreneur or you're a rock star, it doesn't matter what you want to become. You have to master a skill over time and be consistent with the production of that. Sales is one of those, by the way. You're going to make a lot of money, you have to sell a lot, and you have to sell it consistently for the most part, right? Consistency. So what are some of the things that people do or experience that blow the consistency out of the water? They get up in the morning, they don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. I'm tired. I was up too late last night. I drank too much. I would just like to sleep in today. Life sucks. I don't want to go after the thing that I'm going after. What about, I got this problem. I got that problem. I'm exhausted. There's nothing inside of them that pulls them up out of their misery and gives them the energy to be able to go after what they want. And then they ask the wrong question. Because people ask me this all the time. How do you get motivated? What do you do on a regular basis that inspires you? And it's like, wait a second, you guys are asking the wrong question. You want to take motivation and inspiration like it's some kind of pill that you can take, and all of a sudden you feel great again. If you're not motivated, if you're not inspired, you don't need to do something to get motivated or inspired. You're picking the wrong thing. You're not going after the thing that you really want. See, the thing that you really want doesn't change from day to day. You want it today, tomorrow, and forever, because that's your vision of what it is that you're going after. Here's an interesting thing. In Think and Grow Rich, if you've never read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, you should get the book and read it. But one of the things that he talks about in there, because the book is about success and wealth, he said, if you want to become rich, You have to have a white hot burning desire to become rich, or you'll never become rich. And there's nothing about that statement that's not true. It's 100% true. And here's the reason why. Because if you were not born rich, you were born with the wrong mindset to create riches. The mindset that you were given was about creating safety. It was not about creating riches. In order to develop the mindset to create riches, you have to let go of a lot of things in your life that create safety, that live the way the norm does, right? And the principles, the values in and of themselves are completely polar opposite of the values of what keeps you safe. Take risk, for instance, right? Wealthy people have educated themselves enough to be able to take risk. They have a risk tolerance that is way higher than the average working class person. Working class person can't afford to take a risk because if they screw up and it costs them money, they don't have the ability to earn extra money without getting another job. Who wants another job? Nobody wants another job. But you know how many people, I worked at one time when I was young, I worked 3 jobs at the same time. I mean, it was absolutely craziness, right? If you have the right vision, it creates the faith. The faith gives you the courage to move through the things that are difficult. The faith gives you the courage. The vision gives you the inspiration. It gets you up every day out of that bed going after the thing that you truly want. So that problem is solved right from the very beginning. How is it solved? Because you have the right vision. That's important. Faith, so I think you should ask yourself, what is your level of faith? Because that's the thing that needs to begin to expand. If, let's say you don't have a vision right now and you're going, David, but I don't have a vision. What do I do? Do you have the faith to sit down and figure out a vision? You don't have to know your whole life, but you got to pick something that you want. When I started off, I was on a forklift. I was broke. Everything was awful. And I just picked basically one thing. And that was, I was horrified by the results that I had, and I wanted to get my family a house. I wanted to get out of the situation. So I wanted to make enough money to get them a house and so that we could live a relatively stable life. If you remember the story, we were on food stamps for a time. I had to pick something that I wanted. The house was it at first. If you asked me what else I wanted, I really couldn't tell you because I didn't grow up in an environment where you could have what you want. So it was only thinking about what it is that you need in the moment. But as I began to process through that, and I had the faith to go after the house, right? I wanted that house. It made me stick to what I was doing, get better at what I was doing. And as that happened, my mind began to expand. My confidence began to expand. My faith began to expand. Now, you should know this. In those years, I was doing everything that I could to learn. And in the learning, my faith was expanding. I used to watch televangelists on TBN on a regular basis back in the 90s. It was basically when the religious community started to change and adopt successful principles and speak to them with a biblical tone. And they were being more relatable, I think. They were kind of dropping the old way of teaching scripture, and they were trying to modernize it so that younger people could actually hear it. And with several of those people that were preachers at that time, I really resonated with their message was. It helped me overcome the blocks that I had in my mind about how you could believe in God, but success wasn't okay, because that was kind of the way that I was raised. And most of the people around me that I knew were raised the same way. You could not believe in God and be successful at the same time because money wasn't good. Money was the root of all evil, right? It's easier for a man to go through the eye of a needle than it is to get into heaven, a rich man. So there's contradictory things that people do not understand at all because the way that they're basically taught with a corruption to manipulate, and they don't really understand what the truth is behind it. As those discrepancies in my mind began to get cleared up, my faith began to spring forward. And I realized that a lot of information that I had about how to live my life as a good person was completely wrong. Now, let me make a point about that because I think it's very important when it comes to the idea of faith. I believe most people want to be a good person, right? I am not a big believer in this giant evil out there that's trying to take the world down. What I believe is that there are people that don't know the truth. And when you don't know the truth, you don't know how to accomplish anything in a way that benefits not just you, but everybody. So people end up doing things that are corrupt because it's the only thing they're exposed to. I've known so many people that were raised on the streets, and it was survival of the fittest on the streets. You did whatever you had to do to get by. And if that was stealing or whatever it was, at that level, that you made it okay in your mind because that's what everybody else had to do to get by because they didn't know any other way, right? Everybody that's down on the bottom is fighting for survival. It's only when you learn that there's other ways that actually work that I think people change all the time. I've watched them change because they're looking for a way to actually do the right thing. People don't really want to be mad at their brothers and sisters out there, right? They want to find a way to get along. But when the whole world is combating around them, the only thing they know is argument and disagreement. That's soul destroying. That does not inspire faith, courage, or belief in any person whatsoever. So if we're going to achieve the purpose that we have in life, these things need to expand. You need to be reading, you need to be watching videos, you need to be getting new information in your mind to help settle the disputes about the difference between is success okay and is success not okay. And then you need to be working towards the things and putting yourself in the environment where there's more and more opportunity for you to learn, because without that opportunity, it's not going to change. So as I began to do this, I found that it also raised my toleration for risk. When I first started stepping out, I was scared to death that I was going to make a mistake. And here's what I found. Because if I look back at it and I go, okay, so let's say I look at all these various different levels where I could have made what I thought was a mistake back then. Okay, great. What was the consequence of that mistake? Not much. It was nothing that was catastrophic. I remember thinking to myself, if I take this new job and I get laid off in the first year because I don't have seniority, what's the consequence of that? Well, at the time, it seemed horrible because it's like, oh my God, the consequence is that you won't have a job. The truth is I could have got a job anywhere doing what I was doing, right? But you don't think that way when you're that close to the bottom. Everything's a catastrophe. Everything's a problem. And because you haven't built any faith, you don't have any faith that you can actually do something to pull yourself out of a problem, because people at that level are constantly living with the idea that what are you going to do if something goes wrong? And I used to say, like my mom would say that all the time, and I would say, well, like what? Tell me what. She was like, I don't know, anything. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You're not telling me what it is that could go wrong. And she would get so upset and indignant with me about it. But as I started to grow out of this, I realized that they had fear just because of fear, right? It was like Eisenhower said, the only thing to fear is fear itself. They had become afraid of fear itself. They had become afraid of nothing, just fear. Like something goes wrong, we don't have the ability. But it's like a learned helplessness. They don't know that they have the ability to overcome things because the ideas people get about how to survive at the working class level is basically that everybody has power over them and they're victims in life. And when I started to realize that I was operating from a victim mentality, and I started to drop that and really learned how to be a creator in my life and not somebody who was looking through the lens of a victim, my faith soared. It went through the roof, because I also realized something else, that whether you call it spirit, God, universe, energy, whatever it is that you call it, is constantly filling you with the energy, the hope, the ideas that you need to get where it is that you want to go. You've got that in you right now. So get rid of the contradictions. Get rid of the I'm supposed to's. Stop listening to the people that don't inspire you, that are not trying to help you actually move forward. Start listening to your heart. And what is it telling? Where is it telling you to do? Pick at least one thing that you want more than anything, and let that drive you forward. Let that build the hope and the faith and the dream inside of you to go forward for whatever it is that you want. And remember this, Two things. Number one, the problem is never the problem. The problem is that you don't have a vision to see past the problem. That's number one. Number two, make yourself stay open, an open vessel for faith. Keep that open, and you have to step into it. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Don't take chunks like you got to, think about the whole week and the month and the year. One day at a time. Build it consistently, and you'll get there before you know it. I love you guys. Have an amazing day. Hey everyone, David Nagel. I just want to thank you again for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. This was a two-parter on faith. I really hope it helps you at whatever level that you're at, because one of the answers, no matter where we are, doesn't matter the level, we need to expand our faith so that we can overcome the problems that we're experiencing. We'll see you on the next Successful Mind podcast. Love you guys. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com. I'll see you next week.